All right, and welcome to the CodeX Cantina. I am Una.
And I'm the code breaker, Crypto.
You haven't broken the code yet.
I will be. My future Crypto.
This is your time to shine, and I will be able to get you to do this. What I'm curious about is if you'll be able to do it before we do our trick. All right, you ready? So we are starting part 2 on our 2 of 5 reading sessions for the drawing of the 3. We finished basically chapters 4 from The Prisoner up through Shuffle. So we haven't started The Lady of Shadows yet. That's for part 3, which we'll do next week, and we'll do part 3 through I think it's chapter 3. I think it's what it is. All right, Mr. Crypto, we have Eddie breaking out. We have him coming back. We're getting picked up by the Ninja Turtles in the pizza van. We have him go to Balazar's for the big shootout scene, which is unbelievable that this has not been made into a movie at this point in time. Probably one of the highlights, I feel like, of the Dark Tower series readings from my perspective. And then we have them walk along the beach and whisper and long into each other's eyes as they stumble upon the second door. Right?
And have
that's the plot.
delicious lobster dinners by firelight.
You know, have you ever heard the Jim Gaffigan joke when someone says that they like lobster? My response is just, well, yeah, I like butter too.
Yeah. How bad is British food that you have to put vinegar on it to make it taste better?
All right, so we need... I texted Crypto and I said, dude, I figured out what 4 is. And I don't think they ever explicitly say. And not only that, I think the exact moment that we broke this code, that I did some Googling online, I don't think anyone else has.
Oh, this is an exclusive then.
I think we have an exclusive code break. Are you ready?
I am ready. I'm going to call Stephen King real quick, and then I'll be ready.
I mean, when it comes to literary analysis, if you have a plot, if you have a theory, if you can back it up and you have supporting arguments, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. You just have a theory. People can like it or not. It doesn't matter.
Yay, fan fiction.
4.
4.
Any ideas what it means?
No. Yes. No.
We've got it popping up multiple times, right? We've got 4 agents smoking in the interrogation room. 3 pops up a lot too, right? Eddie talks about being trustworthy 21 of 24 years. I thought this was an interesting thing. You subtract 24 from 21, it's 3. Kind of interesting.
Should I be taking notes, getting ready for the cracking this code?
No.
Okay.
I'll tell you how to break the code.
I feel like I need to take notes.
No.
Okay.
I'm just bringing up some points. So Eddie talks about all the monsters in the room probably have 4 guns on them. We've got Eddie also had $3 to $4 on him when he talked about money. Henry started drugs 4 months after his mother's death. And they talk for 3 days and finish at 4 p.m. when walking to the second door. How are not more people talking about the numbers? Like, remember how important 3 was in the previous book? Like, I just don't get why people aren't talking more about numbers. All right, you ready to break this code?
I'm ready.
What was the name of Balazar's bar place?
The Leaning Tower. The Tower.
It was the Leaning Tower.
The Leaning Tower. That's what I said.
What letter could he not see?
So he can't read H's. So the H in the.
Have you thought about why?
It has 4 points. Did I crack it?
No. Kind of, maybe. Okay, you got your piece of paper and pencil.
I got it. I'm ready.
Write the.
How big?
Capital T, with a capital T, lowercase h, lowercase e.
Okay.
Okay, so he can't see the H, right?
Right.
Scribble out the T, scribble out the E, so you just have the lowercase h.
Okay. I feel like this is the Enigma code.
What do you see?
I see a lowercase h.
Turn your piece of paper upside down.
So it's like, no, get it away from me.
So Rollin can't see the lowercase h because it's a 4. So Rollin can't see 4s is the point that I think Stephen King is making here.
Well, I'm weirded out now. Like this.
Now the point that it leads to, I think, is not a big deal. We don't know. I don't remember what 4s lead to. I don't think I even noticed that 4 was used this often in my first reading through. So if it was a big point, all right, and it was actually worth this build-up, which it's not, I think I would remember. If I had to estimate, okay, we had the Man in Black. say that he's going to pull how many people this round?
3.
How many doors are on the cover?
3.
We just got to the second door, so we have to assume. So we won't go into spoilers, to be fair, for people that are reading along. But we know that he's going to go to 3 doors, and the man in black said he's got to pull 3 people, and he even acknowledges it in this section, right?
Yes.
So the 2 important numbers so far have been 3 and 4. So he's going to pull 3 people to form his fellowship to follow the Lord of the Rings references.
And that'll make their total number 4.
I think that's where he was going with this. I don't think the payoff is worth maybe the buildup, but I can't think of why. I think by omission of information, by him not being able to see the H, and through this story so far, Roland doesn't notice all these 4s, as do a lot of readers. He doesn't know who the 4 people are.
That's good.
Yet. That's why I think Stephen King did this.
And it's always 3 or 4, right? Like you said.
Well, three is the important number because that's what he pulls, which brings his fellowship, the members of the party, to 4.
But the numbers are always linked together as well. $3 or $4, 3 to 4 this, 3 to 4 that, 3 to 4 this, 3 to 4 that.
Yeah, walked for 3 days, finished at 4 a.m. Why link them all together if it weren't this really beautiful puzzle? I don't remember him calling that out. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone call that out, so I'm not sure if we just broke that or what, but I thought that was mighty interesting.
Man, if you get an email or call from an S King, you better answer. Even if you have the scam alert on your phone that says telemarketer, you answer it. Because he's going to be like, you broke it, you broke it, you broke it, Una.
Dude, I think one of my most proud breakdowns that we've had was still the gunslinger itself. We ripped that one open, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. But even if this isn't true, this is really cool fan conspiracy theory.
Well, I mean, when it comes to literary analysis, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. If you can make the case for it, make the proof for it.
It's fun.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right, now, what have you... So I've been wanting to talk to you for a while about fleshed out characters and what does it mean to have a character that's fleshed out?
Okay. Which, we only have 2 characters so far, so...
Well, I've been thinking about them because it's really been driving me nuts about how this is so semi-autobiographical, this part, with the whole dealing with drug addiction. And I've really tried to look at that, and I'm like, okay, is Stephen King sober Stephen King? And Eddie is drunk, addicted Stephen King. You know, is this the 2 sides of Stephen King that he sees that he's kind of trying to bring together? But more importantly, what are their philosophies? Are they the same philosophies or are they different? Okay. And if I remember correctly, something that I think... I know he does this, but I think he wrote about in his On Writing book, as he said, when it comes to the details of the character, just give enough for the reader to picture someone, and they'll kind of fill in from a muse perspective all the rest of the details. So they might say that he's skinny, lanky, unkempt, and you can take it from there. Like you fill in the rest of the details of what that character looked like. I'm kind of curious, do Eddie and Rollin look similar to you in your mind?
To you? Or do they look similar to each other?
I'm asking you, do you, in your mind, when you picture Eddie and Rollin, do you picture them as similar looking?
No.
I mean, one's twice as old. He's probably a lot more gruff. Eddie's a junk. I don't picture the same either, but I think it's interesting to think about it from that perspective. When you think about the habits, they're very different too.
Yeah.
Rollin's very habitual. He's got a plan. He sticks through it. He's very pragmatic. I think he's also very fatalist. And I think Eddie is the opposite. He's very fly by the seat of his pants. He's impetuous. He almost looks for permission from Rollin to do things and such. They're very different characters in a sense too. So I think that kind of starts to erode that view that are these 2 different sides of the same coin. But it still fleshes out those characters. Now when it comes to philosophy, the whole first book of The Gunslinger was about the philosophy of the gunslinger, right? Like I don't shoot with my hands, I shoot with my heart, right? I don't see with my eyes, I see with whatever it was. But I don't feel like we've gotten a good philosophy of what's driving Eddie. Like I know he's kind of got that I'm missing my big brother philosophy thing going on, and he sees the big brother in Rollin, but I don't feel like we've gotten a lot of philosophy from Eddie. Have you gotten a lot from him so far?
I think it is that he even says it in there, I think, with the whole suicide thing, when he talks about that he's considering killing himself, but then he realizes that he has somebody depending on him, so he doesn't. And then he says, but if I get you to the tower, or I get you where you need to go, I may revisit that idea. And I think that is his philosophy of his whole life. Somebody's always been looking out for Eddie, and everything has always been done in regards to Eddie. And he when he tells the story about how his mom treated him, and his brother treated him, and the stories about him and his brother, I think that he's finally at a point now where he doesn't feel like a burden, and he talks about this, that he is now the person that is needed. Roland needs him. We don't know what for.
Well, let me jump in there. I think for me, I felt starting out the same way that Eddie needed Henry. But with that last chapter shuffle, did they not make it more apparent that Henry was the one that needed Eddie? And Eddie was actually, even though he's the younger one, he was acting as the big brother.
Yeah. And I think that the roles, as the relationship builds between Roland and Eddie, you see that role flip back and forth, and it's a healthier relationship. But I think that Eddie is very young too, so it's hard, I think, to judge him having, quote, his philosophy, as he's trying to figure out himself in a new world, and as he moves forward with his life without his big brother for the first time, who has been so pivotal in his life, whatever relationship they had back and forth. I think that that's something that is happening and lends itself to incredible character development of where we're going to see Eddie go. And we know a lot more than maybe the reader or the viewers do. So no spoilers on book 3 or 4 or anything, or what happens and blah, blah, blah.
I really don't remember much, honestly. Like, I have high level plot points, but this is very close to me almost reading it for the first time, because I just remember the high points.
Well, I mean, Eddie is arguably the second most important character, but you could say that about any of them. I mean, obviously it's Roland, and then you could do Eddie or the next one or the last one. But they all have their different, and I think that maybe going back to kind of the number 4 is that, like, in a capital H of the 4, they all support one another, right? So there's a connection between them, and they're all leaning together on each other. Where if it's like 3, it's an A, and there's too much dependency on one. And I think that's why he failed in the Gunslinger, is he was dependent too much on himself, or he was too much dependent on Jake. And that's all going to change with this one, because they're going to create this little quartet. Is that number 4?
Yes.
4? Okay.
And let me add on to, we started the conversation last week about, could you start with this book? There was a small section in there where it's not important yet, but I think it will be. I don't remember if it is or not, but they talked about hacks, and they talked about how hacks, the philosophy, they talked about the philosophy of hacks and why he was weak because he was reluctant in his resolve. And they're building up that you gotta be 100% confident in your resolve, was kind of the message that they had there. Some of that you wouldn't totally understand if you skipped Gunslinger. I don't think it's detrimental, but it's one of those minor annoyances you'd have to put up with if you just skipped Gunslinger. But I still think if you've got a guy that is not into a lot of symbolism and just wants more of a straight action, more straightforward story, I think it would be worth putting up with those grievances to say, just start on this one. And I'm not pushing for it, but like, if it's the difference between a guy not reading the story, which I do like the Dark Tower series that I've read, versus not reading it at all, I think it's worth pushing someone to start on book 2 to see if this is their jam before making a decision.
I think that's fair. So, I mean, that's something kind of like we do sometimes in our other videos when we do the wrap-ups and we give suggestions to read this or not read this, who this is for. This book is definitely for somebody that enjoys a little bit more linear of a story, less symbolism, more action. But as we've discussed already here tonight, and we have other times as well, there's a lot more deeper meaning and philosophy and religious and nuances to this story that you can get out of it, even though there is that more action. And one of the most incredible action scenes of the entire series, I think, is with the bathroom scene. I mean, that is just so good. And if Amazon does this right, and eventually we get a true adaptation of this, that scene is just going to be so amazing. I mean, just imagine it's 1980s, and we have the paneling wall and the cards flying and the sound, and I would even make it so like the sink breaks with one of the shots from the machine gun and water goes spewing, and you have Roland sliding across the water,
it's incredible.
shooting people.
It's incredible. I cannot wait for it.
And you're going to put some hard rock music behind it. I mean, it's going to be like John Wick meets The Matrix. It's going to be good.
Yeah, I cannot wait for it. And let me give one little final thing that I love about what Stephen King did with this book. To me, it's very important that characters choose their fate, choose their outcome, choose their journey. And it's very clear that Eddie chose to go with Roland. Roland didn't make him come. There wasn't something forcing him to do it. This is a huge journey that Eddie has chosen to go on. And they even say, so even if you take the argument, oh, well, he lost everything here. His brother passed away. The cops are coming. He had to go. They even said this very subtle line as they were walking through the door. They said, they stepped through, Eddie actually leading a little. That very subtle line that shows that Eddie is eager to move on and find something else, I think is very, very important. And that was one of the issues, like if you're drawing the comparison to The Lord of the Rings, particularly the book versus the movie, I cannot stand in the book how Elrond appoints the Fellowship as opposed to the movie when they're like, you can have my sword and my axe. Like, it's much more heroic and dramatic for these characters to offer up their services and choose to go on the journey, much like how Eddie does here, as opposed to actually the book Lord of the Rings, where they're like, Elrond said that I should come with you, so here I am trying to get you to Mordor to take out the ring and such.
I don't think there were any terrible New York or Jersey people.
I mean, come on, 1987 accent. That's my specialty, is murdering accents. All right,
yeah. I was going to say, I think this is indicative of King's writing, where a lot of his protagonists are self-made men and women. And you see that through a lot of his stories where they get to choose their own fate. You look at The Shining. You look at Into the Tall Grass. You look at Tommyknockers. You look at The Stand. You look at any of these stories. A lot of the more supernatural sci-fi ones, not less so maybe the horror ones. But even the kids get to make and choose their own destiny. And I think that is something that he always writes his characters like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we love his stories so much, is because we can relate so well to the characters of like, I want to be like that in my life. I want to make my own choices, my own destiny.
Well, and he always makes sure that it happens in the beginning too, because it's not just enough to make it happen. It's got to happen early on, that they choose early on in this battle to embark upon this.
Or you don't believe it.
A really good example of this is that the Venom, the Sony Venom movie, where if you rewatch this, I don't know if you noticed this when you're watching it.
No, it was a terrible movie.
Every single time the suit is put on Eddie, the suit is thrust or put upon him, and Eddie does not choose it.
Oh, same name too. That's weird.
And in the final battle, when he's got to jump into the water, that's the first time him as a character chooses that lifestyle, chooses to put that on. And that's way too late, I feel like, for that to be believable. And even like when he like regained the suit, when his girlfriend kissed him, like it was just way too late to have introduced that into the story. So I feel like that plot device, I think, is very important to me as a reader, and I love how Stephen King pulls that off.
Yeah.
So I'll give this part.
Yeah, you're gonna.
We're not rating it because.
Oh, okay, no ranking.
We're not going to rank it, but I'll give it a thumb and a finger nubbin up because I'm using my right hand and I'm missing 2 fingers. So I'll give it some nubs and a thumbs up for this.
I enjoy this. I think this is some of the best of the book and the series so far.
All right, guys, follow us next week as we continue on this journey where we start from the Lady in the Shadows, and I think it's
my favorite character.
Please consider subscribing as we follow on our Dark Tower journey. We are doing the Lady in the Shadows through Chapter 3 of the Lady in Shadows section.
Like in February. Peace.
Peace out.